Hey guys, Shakarez or Killbot here, and welcome to the second episode of Shakarez Spectates. I know most of you voted on the poll I did last time with pobelter's Mid Ezreal winning that poll. However, I had tons of problems getting the footage recorded. In the end, I did manage to get most of it, but I was so frustrated that I couldn't look at more Ezreal footage and talk about it for a week. So that will be next week, I promise. And today we're going to pick up one of my own choices, and we'll be talking about a player called LL or Rome, and he will be playing Viktor. Now, for those of you who aren't familiar with the player, he's a Syndra and Viktor main from NA Challenger, and he has around 1k ranked games with only these two champions. Now, the reason why I chose this specific gameplay is because Viktor is quite the interesting champion. He often gets neglected because his def ray is hard to use and get used to, and his build paths are very versatile, meaning newer players are fairly lost when playing him. The fact that Viktor has a Hex Core and a unique item that has 3 upgrades makes it very complicated for people to understand when it should be upgraded and if it should be always upgraded and rushed and all that kind of stuff. So hopefully I'll be here to help you guys figure that out, and if you like the champion, to play him better. So today Rome is playing versus Lissandra and in the mid lane, and one thing he also always does, which I forgot to mention, is he always runs teleport even when he's playing mid Viktor, which is much more frequent than top Viktor from what I've seen in his games. And this is mainly because he wants to have the pressure to roam with teleport, because Viktor as a champion, he's not the best roamer, so he wants to use teleport to roam. And talking a bit more about this matchup, Lissandra is definitely a matchup that he can punish with his E, but since you're not going to be using your E very much early on, because if you use it too much, you'll run out of mana very easily, Lissandra can push Viktor in. And you'll see with Rome's positioning that whenever he changes his positioning around, Lissandra tries to be in a 180 degree of his position, and this is so she can place herself behind the enemy minions and Q him like she just did right now. And that's how Lissandra pokes and how Lissandra deals with ranged matchups, and how she keeps bullying, in a way, Rome on Viktor. And you're looking at him being pushed in very easily, and this is due to a lack of ability power quintessences. I'll explain that in a bit. Here he sees that he cannot keep staying in lane because his mana is depleted, so he can go back, and this is where he uses the TP. He buys a double Doran's, he gets 3 potions and a mana potion, and goes back into lane. And now with the extra gold he had in the teleport, he can now safely push back the lane and try to gain an equal footing. Now, looking at masteries, for this match he's running 2109. He usually switches between 2109 and 2190. I overall agree with every point. He runs the 3 points in the movement speed because since he's going to build Morale-Omicron, he's not going to have many mana issues, so he doesn't need the flat mana regen. And the 5 movement speed are really useful because it's Viktor. He doesn't have that much move speed. However, I feel like taking Double-Edged Sword is a bit of a double-edged sword, just how the name really says it. Because on ranged characters, you gain 1.5% extra damage, but you also lose it. And right here, Lissandra goes in and he has to flash. Rengar was coming in for the gank and he immediately had to blow flash. But notice how when he saw Lissandra coming in with the Ice Claw, I don't know the name of the skill, he immediately places his gravity field on top of where he's landing, so he can immediately slow her and then potentially stun her to escape. And you'll see him doing that throughout the game multiple times. He's very intelligent when he's playing his Viktor, and he usually makes the right decision and is able to escape sticky situations. So, going back onto the masteries, I pretty much agree with everything except for Double-Edged Sword. I think it can be a bit too risky. I understand that what he's going for is he's going for the extra damage so he can make plays, but that also comes with a very high price. So take that into account and don't always copy what you see from other players. Now, going into runes, Rome runs quite a weird setup. Oh, and right here, this is a pretty important moment. Lissandra hits 6, he's still not 6, and ultimately she makes the mistake of taking way too long. And she does end up on engaging him right here. She flashes in, E's, drops everything. Unfortunately, the camera moved. I couldn't control it to stay on Viktor. But Lissandra did die to the tower. So a good trade for Viktor because he didn't have flash. He didn't use any summoners because he's using teleport. And Lissandra using both summoners, both flash and ignite. And it was a 1-for-1 kill. So worth it for Viktor. He does lose a bit of minions because he was getting pushed in, but it's fine. And back in base, he buys his first hex core augment and goes back into lane. Now, onto runes. Rome runs quite the weird setup. He runs Magic Penetration Quints on Viktor, and this is always. Besides that, for this specific game, he's running Magic Penetration Marks, Health per Level Seals, and Magic Penetration Glyphs as well. And this was something that really intrigued me, so I went to do a shitload of math, and it took a better part of my afternoon yesterday, but it was worth it. And the conclusion that I got to was, if you're playing against a target that has 30 MR, Viktor's Death Ray is better at rank 4, so level 7, and here's an engage in the jungle where they end up getting some kills from it. Rome gets 1 kill, and I believe he gets an assist as well. But Death Ray becomes better at level 7, so in 1 level from now, and this is not taking into account any purchases, because the purchases, the AP purchases will help the magic penetration be better. So right now, the Death Ray could be better. It's a rank 3, he's level 6, but he's got double Dorans and the Hex Core Augment. And then his Chaos Storm does more damage in terms of both burst and the bolt, because it's an initial burst and then there's the bolts that do extra damage. His Siphon Power damage is superior, and by Siphon Power damage, I mean the projectile that comes out first and not the enhanced auto attack. And the auto attack is really the only thing that's inferior with magic penetrations in the early game, but you don't get to use it very often unless for specific circumstances. So it's okay to run the magic penetration quint, because you can get away with it because you have your Hex Core Augment, which gives you AP per level. So by level 5, you're getting the equivalent 3 AP quints, 15 AP. However, Lissandra was running Magic Resistance Glyphs, meaning she's at 42. I did the calculations for 42 as well, and more or less the same conclusions. The only thing that doesn't change too much is the fact that since she's running Magic Resistance, Magic Penetration is still equally as good, but AP Quints would be a better option for the ultimate. But overall, he's trading the early game, the first 5-6 levels, the first 5 levels, pre-6. He's trading the pre-6 laning phase for a better mid-game. And at mid-game with the Magic Penetration Quints, especially if your opponent doesn't have any MR, it's going to be very strong, because it's going to be about 15. And right here, this engage was very intelligent. Again, I talked about this before. When Lissandra goes in, he immediately places the gravity field. Despite being 1 level behind, he does get the advantage on the trade, and then he flashes in, E's, and hits his E, which is extremely hard to do after flashing, and then he Qs and kills Lissandra. So despite being 1 level behind, he does get the kill on Lissandra because he knew how to approach a trade, and he forced Lissandra to use her ult kind of to run away, because she was already taking way too much damage from him since she was stuck in the gravity field, or close to being stuck in the gravity field with the damage of the ultimate and the Death Ray. Right here, almost a kill on Quas. Quas did end up having to flash, and Swain's a very dangerous mage. I'm going to be sure to make an episode about Quas's Swain, because it's one of his better champions, and a champion that's very interesting to look at. Now, he goes back and buys Sorcerer's Shoes and buys an Amplifying Tome. Exactly. So, one thing that is very deceiving about Viktor is that you might look at him and think, oh, he doesn't have any items, but he does. He's having that scaling hex core. It might be a second upgrade. In this case, it's only the first hex core, but it's already giving him a lot of scaling AP, so it allows him to be on a very high level of AP. Like right now, I think he's around 90 to 100 ability power, and Lissandra is at a much lower amount. Anyways, we last talked about right here again, the same kind of engage. Unfortunately, he does get killed. I'm speeding this up because he just got completely destroyed by the whole enemy team that grouped up and decided to kill him. But when Lissandra went in, he placed the gravity field where she was going to go, and then immediately used ult, and that allows him to win the trades, and it forces Lissandra basically to back off and not fight him. So right here, he did die. He did not get anything because he's looking for a bigger power spike in terms of items. And finishing up on masteries, which I haven't yet because this game has been kind of hectic. Lissandra, in this case, I do believe... Oh, and here's the other engage. My god, I'm not going to stop talking about team fights. A trade there. Quas ends up killing Viktor after he killed Lissandra. And now I believe Otter gets this kill. Exactly. And now the epic fight between Rumble and support Blitzcrank. So I'll just let you guys enjoy this one. Pretty cool fight here. But Zion Spartan does end up winning. And now if you look at the minimap, you'll see the perfect rocket coming from Wild Turtle hitting Zion. So back to Viktor. On his glyphs, he ran magic penetration, which is something I don't agree with necessarily. They're not tier 1 runes, so they're not giving you that much magic penetration. It's only 4 magic penetration. I have seen the other glyphs he runs, and he usually runs either MR scaling, so magic resist scaling, or CDR per level. And in this case, since he's playing versus double AP, what I usually see from him is him running the magic resistance per level, but I don't know why he decided not to. Maybe he thought he could get away with not running any MR, but it does cost him in some team fights. So right here, a bit of a confusion. Lee Sin ends up going in while he goes after the Blitzcrank. He gets the kill there. And now this fight breaks out, and look at his positioning throughout the fight. He's always at the pack. He doesn't want to get caught out, and he wants to be on a safe range where he can use his laser and potentially do a lot of damage. So they get the kill on Quas. Wild Turtle is going to fall to Lissandra. And right here, since he was always in the back and untouched, he can really use his Def Ray super well, and he rarely misses it. He can be at the back dealing literally tons of damage, and that's the strength of Viktor. If he's left untouched, he's definitely one of the mages with the most DPS. And if you check games where Viktor has, even in Viktor losses, you'll see that this guy is usually top DPS on his team, or even in the whole game, he's usually the top DPS. So he's a character that does a lot of damage that people are not expecting, and a lot of it comes from the augmented E, which he already has, and which he chooses to get always first, and which you should always choose to get first, unless you're going for a more bruiser style Viktor and you're trying to max your Q first. So right here, gets the kill on Double Lift. Double Lift couldn't do much. He only has his Rune-Ons and hit parts of his Bloodthirster, so he can't do much. Anyways, I got a bit lost there. Back to Rome and his build. Right now, he has his Moralonomicon. He has Sorcerers, his first augment to his Hex Core, and he has a Blasting Wand. Now, a big problematic with Viktor, and I think something that scares a lot of people from playing Viktor, is that he has way too many items that he can build, and he doesn't have enough slots. Now, think of it this way. One of the slots is going to be the Hex Core. You can't sell it, you can't do anything about that. The other slot is going to be boots. And I'm not saying which boots, because you can choose between Sorcerers, between CDR boots. You can even go for a defensive type option, but usually Sorcerers or Ionian boots are the ones you're going to see the most. So those are 2 slots out of the 6 slots. This means that Viktor can only get 4 more items. Now, from those 4 items, Viktor can get Morello, Voidstaff, Zhonya's, Rabadon's, even DFG, Rylai's, and Lichbane. So when people say that Lichbane is a core item on Viktor, it's one of those things where I wholeheartedly disagree. I don't consider it to be a core item. I think it's a situational late game item that you can get depending on what you need and what you can do in team fights. So right here, not much has happened for quite a while now. This is why this part is all sped up. And he's only really farming and trying to get his power spike. I believe he goes for Rabadon second. But usually as Viktor, you have different paths you can go for. You can either skip your mana item and go for early upgrades on your hex core and rely on the base mana, the mana that it gives. So it gives no mana regen, but it gives flat mana. And it gives 500 mana when you get the final augment. So you can rely on that, and then if you want CDR, you can go CDR boots, which was what I was doing at the time. But right now, in the current state, oh, and right here, he tries to catch out Lissandra. He barely doesn't get it, and he ends up dying to Rengar. And the rest of the team was busy doing Baron, and unfortunately, and with like any solo queue game, it has to have a Baron throw. So the team starts getting wiped out by Baron. I'm not sure what Wild Turtle was thinking there. Instead of moving, he just tried to auto it to death, but Rengar was around, he had smite, so he just took the free Baron for blue team. And big throw here, the gold swing is almost equal again, so really big throw by red team. Anyways, so there's too many items that Viktor can get and not enough slots. And this is a very big problematic with Viktor, and I think it's something that confuses anyone trying to learn Viktor. And overall, what it's going to do is it's going to keep people from playing Viktor, kind of. So right here, another team fight. He does put a lot of damage on Zion Spartan, and then he does get the assist on him. Lissandra, good Zhonya's, forces Viktor to go in to try and get some damage. He gets chunked by double lift, and then double lift unchecked after Lissandra gets killed, gets the triple kill on Kalista. So when Kalista is left unchecked, she's very dangerous, she's very mobile, and Lissandra did a great job there, pulling the aggro and leaving double lift to be unchecked. Now, as I was saying about the builds, you can either go for the hex core augments and skip your mana item, or instead you can be going for a build where you get the Morellonomicon as your item, as your mana item, and that gives you the CDR, and that allows you to go for other items, because overall I think that Viktor does need a CDR item. I think he really gains a lot from getting CDR, so I'd either advise you to go for a Morellonomicon, or if you want to skip the Morellonomicon and not get any items, get the CDR boots, so you can get those lower cooldowns and do a lot of bursts. Now right here, he goes in, he bursts Lissandra, but he doesn't respect the zoning that Swain is able to do. And you'll see in later team fights that he plays very carefully, because this Swain is very fed, and it's Quas on Swain, of all people, one of the best Swain players on his server. And he already has Rod of Ages and an Abyssal Scepter, so he's obviously very dangerous. Right here, they do end up dying. But not respecting the Swain will get you bursted down, especially when you don't have any kind of magic resistance. And right now, Rome went for the Morello and the Rabadons, and now has another needlessly large rod, so presumably getting his Zhonya's. And back then, I talked a bit about magic resist per level glyphs, and how I feel they're very important. And this is one of the reasons why I don't feel like any MR item really fits Viktor. And if you're forced to go for an item like Banshees or a QSS, a defensive item, it usually means that because you're going for an item like that, you're only going to have 3 more slots for offensive items. And since you always have to get Void Staff for the most part, that limits your builds a lot. So I usually get the MR per level on Viktor, so I can skip getting an MR item. But if you need an MR item, if you're playing against a very heavy AP team, you should be getting something. Abyssal might be a choice, but you don't really use the aura range unless you're really close, so unless you're playing a lot with your Q. So right here, Rome playing on the backside, he did manage to burst down Lissandra, and now he's hanging back. They're waiting on the Jinx to come back because that's their hyper carry. But Wild Turtle does get caught, unfortunate, by the Sway Never move and then gets chain CC'd. And he does kill Quas, and then he forces Doublelift here out, because he does hit him with his E and gets the Q out, meaning Doublelift cannot chase for the kill. And right here, a very dire situation, because they could be getting a Nexus turret, but Zion's flash hook was not very good. But he does end up dying here to the Rengar ultimate. But overall, good job there in the team fight. In the end, he ended up delaying blue team from getting any Nexus turrets, because they're now ahead in the game and they have an inhibitor. So it's really blue team's game to lose right now, in a sense. Now, where was I? Oh yeah, items. And actually right here, he teleports in, and this is how he uses teleport. And teleport becomes a really strong summoner if you can use it to roam and to go into team fights. And with double teleport, this team is always everywhere. So he teleports in, gets a kill, and gets an assist, or gets 2 assists, I'm not even sure. And then he sees the Kalista splitting and goes top lane. But now red team can get pretty much a free Baron after catching out the Rengar and the rest of the team there, only leaving 2 members of blue team alive. Talking a bit more about the build while you see this interesting trade here. After going Morellonomicon, since you're pretty much going Void Staff, because you're going to need it, you only have 2 more item slots. So from there, it really depends on what you need to get. Def Cap is obviously a good item on him. It enhances all of his offensive skills, and he has pretty decent ratios. His Q is a 0.5 on the auto attack. His E is a 0.7. Sorry about that. With a 0.28 if it hits twice. So the second part of the E also has a decent ratio. And then his ultimate has a 0.55 AP ratio with little 0.1 AP ratio dots. Now, for his build, you'll usually see him get Def Cap, Zhonya's, Morellonomicon, and Void Staff. And you'll see, oh, there's no Lich Bane, exactly. It's not really an item that he can always afford to get. So, in my opinion, I think Lich Bane is a really good item if you're playing more of a top lane Viktor and you want to split, or even mid lane and you want to split. And right here, we're going to look at this team fight and then analyze it to see what he did wrong. But it's, again, Lich Bane is not something he should be getting all the time. Now, right here, he gets bursted by the Lissandra super hard, and his team starts getting wiped out after himself and his AD carry, who is Wild Turtle on Jinx, die. They lose both of the carries, and right here, this is a field day for Doublelift kiting around. And yeah, pretty much it. So we'll go back to this team fight so we can analyze it now. Now, right here, they're trying to get the turret, they have the Baron buff, they're pretty much ahead in the game, and at the same time, they're trying to catch Lissandra, who's trying to flank. And you'll notice that Rengar, if you look at the minimap, you'll see that Rengar is behind enemy lines, and he's trying to get a pick on, probably on Jinx. And right here, perfect Zhonya's by Quas right after the gravity field, and right here, the mistake that the Roe makes on Viktor is the moment he sees the Lissandra coming in, he has to Zhonya's preemptively. So he has to Zhonya's before she actually comes in, because after she comes in, just flashes on him, ults him, and basically destroys him because he has no type of MR, and basically a Doublelift finishes off the job. And after Wild Turtle and Rome are out of the fight, with the carries gone, the blue team can pretty much finish off the team fight and ace it. And if he had played that out better and didn't get immediately taken down by Lissandra, if he had Zhonyaed when he saw the Lissandra coming in, Lissandra would be forced to either ult herself, Zhonya herself, or she would just get chunked and have to back off, and that would give a window of time for him to reposition. Of course, those are all hypotheses. We don't know what would actually happen, but if he had Zhonya's, he had a better chance of his team winning the fight there. But props to blue team, because that Rengar and that Lissandra did a really good job in picking their targets and getting rid of the carries. And obviously the Zhonya's by class was really good. So back to the items, and after we finish, this is usually what his final build looks like. Morello, Void Staff, Rabadons, and Zhonya's. And then he upgrades his Hex Core. And usually he actually upgrades his Hex Core very, very late into the game. I think that's also very situational. If you want to upgrade your Hex Core sooner for movement speed on your Q, or for the better Orianna type stun pull in on the gravity field, you should also be getting the upgrade sooner, but that's really preference. And I'd say that the item that can change the most in this build when you go for the Morello is the Def Cap. If you can go, instead of the Def Cap, if you need an extra defensive item, Rylai's is really good, and this is the last team fight that ends the game. Rylai's is a really good item. It gives you a 35% slow. Really good Zhonya's here, by the way. Doesn't let them engage on him, and then the Thresh Lantern doesn't let Lissandra do anything. And right here, he's poking really hard. You'll see that by himself, he's managing to poke 4 people down. No one dies, but everyone's very low. And then the moment Swain comes in, he gets caught and dies. And then it pretty much goes downhill from here for blue team. But I'd say Rabadon's Def Cap is definitely the item that can interchange the most. If you're going for a Viktor that can actually go into melee range, use his Q a lot, Lichbane can be a better item than Def Cap, but remember that Def Cap is enhancing all your other abilities and not only the Q, like Lichbane is. And you can go for Rylai's for your defensive item. You get the 35% slow when you use your Q, and it's pretty good. It's a pretty solid item because you can constantly reapply your Q if you have any types of cooldowns. And other options would include like a Deathfire Grasp if you need to get rid of someone, but that's more of a situational kind of item, something you'll see even less than a Lichbane. So I hope you guys enjoyed this Shakarez Spectates on Viktor. Next week we will have the pobelter video on Mid Ezreal. I really want to cover that, and I really want to explain a bit more about double ED comps in general and Ezreal Mid specifically. But alas, I was a bit too frustrated with the footage to actually do analysis on Ezreal. So again, that's going to be it for today. I hope you guys enjoy the video, a bit of a long one, but these analysis videos are always going to be long. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoy the video, and I'll see you guys in the Rift. Shakarez signing out.